I'm Nick. I started Nick's TV Repair more than a decade ago and since then have fixed over 26,000 devices. I'm about to show you how to fix Samsung's first 4K curved screen TV, which has a common fault. The HDMIs aren't working. This model has the HDMIs on the One Connect box. The problem, they're completely out of stock even for used units. But that's okay. We can still fix it by fixing the box on a component level. Let's open it up and see what's inside. Looking closely at the HDMI ports, we can see all of these data lines, which if we follow them, lead us right to this IC chip. This is the HDMI processor chip, which is the most likely fault and reason why our HDMI ports aren't working. In order to confirm this, I want to perform two tests. Number one, I want to do a short check using my multimeter. And number two, I want to use my thermal camera to see if that chip is getting hotter than it should. I'm going to put my negative lead on this ground pad over here. And my first measurement is going to be on this inductor with ID location L207. And I need a good working board. We're expecting to see about 500 ohms. If we're seeing any less, which we currently are, 11 ohms, it would indicate that our HDMI processor is indeed defective and needs to be replaced. All right, I have had the One Connect box connected for just about 30 seconds or so, and we can clearly tell that we do actually have a hotspot right here on that HDMI processor. We're clocking in about 59 to 60 degrees. And that's actually going to be a little hotter than what we want to see. Typically, when we've just plugged in this unit, we're not really expecting more than about 40 degrees. Now that we've confirmed the HDMI processor is defective, let's replace it. If we take a close look, we'll notice that there's a lot of pins on the perimeter of the chip. However, there is a ground pad in the center as well. What this means is we will need to use both our bottom heater and hot air at the same time to remove and replace that chip. I have my bottom heater at about 300 Fahrenheit for preheating. We're going to let the board and the chip preheat for about 3 minutes or so, and then we'll begin the removal process. While we wait, I'm going to add a little bit of flux on all four sides of our chip. So I believe we're about a temperature, so let's go ahead and start the desoldering process. And ironically, I am adding solder first before we start desoldering. And I do this for two reasons. Number one, I want to make sure we have good flow on all of the pins on this processor chip. And the second reason is so that we can have a good visual indicator of when the solder is molten and the chip is ready to lift. If the solder is not molten, it will have a bit more of a dull look, and if it is in a liquid state, it will have a much shinier look. All right, we're gonna get started here. I'm actually gonna use my iron to give it an assist, just so we can get the temperature a little faster here. Okay, and it looks like we're getting there. A lot of my solder is looking shiny. Can I lift the chip? Not quite. Oh, there we go. Now while the board is hot, we're going to go ahead and remove a little bit of that extra solder I added. And we'll use the desolder wick to remove the rest. We're going to do a quick clean with isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. I just want to remove the spent flux. Now that the HDMI processor is removed, let's recheck the inductor and see what our new reading is. And we're getting about 348, 349, 350, and rising. And that's because the board is still hot, so the reading is a little bit lower. If we waited a few more minutes, the reading should eventually hit 500 ohms. This does further confirm we have removed the correct chip, so now let's go ahead and install the replacement. We're going to start by adding a little bit of solder paste to our pad here. And now we'll install our replacement processor. And I've made sure all of our pins are properly lined up. And now we're ready to solder it down with our hot air. Now as I'm soldering it, I'm actually going to be putting a little bit of pressure on it with my tool. And that is to ensure that the pad on the chip makes good contact with the ground pad on the circuit board. So I've obviously not yet soldered any of the pins on the perimeter. So the only thing holding it down should be the ground pad, provided I did a good job. And the chip is not moving at all, which does confirm I did properly solder that ground pad. Now we can start soldering down the pins using our iron. And I'm just going to add a couple blobs here and there. Next we'll add our flux again. I'm going to start with the first two sides here. We unfortunately had a microphone malfunction, so we're going to be doing a voiceover here. We've just switched over to our microscope, and with our rake tool, we are raking the pins of the chip. If any of the pins do move as we rake them, that would be an indication they're not properly soldered down, but it looks like everything so far is looking good. All right, we're adding a little bit of extra flux here. And for this side of the chip, it does look like I have a little bit too much solder, so we'll bring it to the very end of the chip, and using our desolder wick, we'll go ahead and remove that extra. We'll go ahead and do another rake, make sure all the pins are soldered down properly, and it looks like they are. And our final side, we'll add extra flux, of course. And same thing, we'll go ahead and bring that little blob of solder over to the pins that are not yet soldered. On this one, it looks like I have just the right amount, however. Actually, maybe not enough. Nope, it looks like we're okay. So we will not need to use the desolder wick here. All right, our final rake, make sure everything is good. And it is. I finished cleaning up the board, and now we can go ahead and do our final check. This time around, I did leave it alone for long enough so that it's fully cooled, and we are getting 535 ohms right now, so 0.534 kilo ohms. This does confirm, I believe we have a fully functional One Connect box, but let's live test it just to be sure. All right, and the unit's been on for about 30 seconds or so, and the hottest part is these RAMs at about 42 Celsius, which is what we're expecting, and our HDMI processor is not getting very warm here. So that's an indicator that our short is gone, and we don't have an issue anymore. All right, I'm gonna plug in our HDMI port 1 and see if we get picture. Okay, and our HDMIs are working. I don't have the fan plugged in, so we'll disconnect it quickly and put it back together. We'll put it all back together for our extended testing, but for the purposes of this video, we'll go ahead and call it fully functional here. If you're interested in sending us your One Connect box for us to fix, we offer flat rate services, which come with a 1-year warranty, and those are available on our website, which I will link in the description down below. If you found the video helpful or useful, leave us a like, subscribe for more, and thank you for watching.